The morning light filters gently through the windows as Yoonji stirs awake, her mind immediately occupied with thoughts of Sunghyun. Curiosity blends with a lingering hope, and she finds herself wondering where he's gone. For a moment, there's an odd comfort in being back at Sigriel Apartments, a place that once felt like her true home. Her thoughts are interrupted as Sunghyun re-enters the room, and she turns toward him, greeting him with a smile that masks her questions. The question on her mind spills out naturally as she asks him directly about the nature of their relationship now. But instead of an answer, he gives her only silence, his gaze falling away. After a moment, he reassures her that he'll reach out to her later, promising that he doesn't want things to end on this uncertain note. A sense of frustration bubbles up within Yoonji. She's left wondering if he really sees her as someone worthwhile, or if, to him, she's just another face that can be easily forgotten. It stings to consider that he might view her as disposable, someone he can turn to only when it's convenient, all because of her role as a rented girlfriend. She feels a pang of regret for letting herself believe they could share something real, something meaningful. Before he has a chance to say anything further, she gathers her things and swiftly leaves, unable to hold back the storm of emotions building inside her. Her steps quicken as she heads toward the door, determined to make her exit before she second-guesses herself. As she walks away, she vows never to return to his place under these circumstances, declaring to herself that if she comes back to Sigriel Apartments, it will be on her own terms and with her own means. Tears well up, but she's filled with a mixture of anger and disappointment. Yoonji feels like she's moving in slow motion as she heads toward the psychiatric clinic, her mind a blur of emotions. The weight of her recent encounter with Sunghyun lingers heavily, and she's desperate for comfort, for someone to just make the ache stop. Without a second thought, she bursts into her doctor's office, catching him by surprise. "Please, just spend the night with me," she blurts out, her voice laced with raw desperation. It's her only wish, the only thing she can think of right now to feel something real again. Her doctor gives her a concerned look, taking a deep breath before he gently asks, "Yoonji, what happened? Talk to me." Her shoulders slump as she tries to put the painful memory into words, explaining how she'd shared an intimate moment with a client, the one she'd mentioned before, and how he rejected her immediately afterward. Despite her doctor's calm attempts to console her, to assure her that her worth isn't tied to these painful experiences, Yoonji's grief is too deep to ease. It's only when she opens her medicine pack that she notices a handful of stronger pills she hadn't realized were in her stash. The discovery brings with it a cold sense of clarity. She has what she needs to numb herself, to drown out the noise of disappointment. A week later, Yoonji's life isn't any easier. She's scrolling through her phone when a rent reminder pings her screen, jolting her back to her financial reality. She's down to her last bit of cash, barely enough to cover the necessities. As she weighs her options, a stream of notifications lights up her phone from clients wondering about her week-long absence. With renewed determination, she picks one of her clients, a man named Haru, and arranges to meet him. Their initial introduction is straightforward as she offers him a polite smile and introduces herself. Haru acknowledges her and quickly gathers his belongings, signaling he's ready to leave. As they begin walking together, she catches sight of a tattoo peeking out from beneath his sleeve. The dark, intricate design piques her curiosity, and a thought crosses her mind: could he be involved in gang-related activities? Though she says nothing, the mystery around him holds her attention. They continue walking in comfortable silence until Haru surprises her with a soft question. "Can I hold your hand?" The request is simple, yet something about it feels intimate, almost tender. He says, "You don't have to hold my hand if you don't want to." She asks where they're going, curious if they're meeting someone else. His reasons for calling her aren't clear, and she wonders if he simply asked her out on a date, especially with how stylish he looks. Judging by his appearance, she assumes he must have many female friends. They arrive at a restaurant, place their orders, and soon the food arrives as they talk. He begins by asking her age, then moves on to questions about the people she encounters in her line of work. She answers politely, but when he asks why she chose her job, her eyes fill with tears. Alarmed, he apologizes for asking such a sensitive question, but she brushes it off, admitting she's only in it for the money. Later, they visit another restaurant for more food. During their conversation, she questions why he would ask such a thing. Before he can respond, she interrupts, suggesting he drops being formal by calling Miss Yoonji and calls her Nuna instead. She finds his boyishness endearing and wonders if this is what having a younger brother might feel like. This thought makes her think of her older brother in America, whom she hasn't spoken to in a long time. He notices she's been drinking too much and compliments her, saying she seems to get prettier each time he looks at her. As they leave the restaurant, he asks to see her again and nervously requests her phone number, pleading with her not to turn him down. Later that evening, when Haru is home, he takes a call from a friend who uses harsh words to describe Yoonji. Furious, Haru warns him to stop or face consequences, showing how much he cares about her. On the other hand, Yoonji lies awake, regretting not having drunk more earlier since sleep refuses to come. Her thoughts are tangled with memories of her recent encounter with Sunghyun. Just then, her phone buzzes with a notification from a new client. It's Dr. Yu again. Taking her time to get ready, she prepares for their meeting. When she arrives, she's startled to see Dr. Yu dressed casually for the first time. Smiling, she approaches him and introduces herself as his girlfriend for the day. At Yoonji's company, which specializes in providing companionship services, employees can view client profiles, but clients never see the employees' faces during the selection process. This means Dr. Yu had no idea Yoonji was the one fulfilling his request. Realizing it's her, Dr. Yu tries to cancel, explaining he feels uncomfortable dating a patient. Yoonji, determined to ease his discomfort, gently asks why he sought the service and assures him she's here to help. Surprised by her sincerity, Dr. Yu hesitates before inviting her out for coffee. Yoonji accepts, still perplexed at how she has ended up so close to his personal life. At the cafe, they casually discuss their menu options before the conversation shifts to Yoonji's previous life of privilege. Midway through, Dr. Yu's phone rings, and he steps away to take the call. As Yoonji waits, she overhears a nearby conversation that sounds oddly familiar. Turning around, she spots Sunghyun's uncle, whom she recognizes from their last outing. Eavesdropping further, she begins piecing things together and realizes Sunghyun might not have rejected her out of dislike but because his feelings for her could be stronger than he lets on. Dr. Yu returns from his call only to find that Yoonji has left, leaving behind a short, apologetic note. Meanwhile, Yoonji hurries to Sunghyun's house, her mind swirling with uncertainty. She wonders if he will even open the door, fearing he might already be growing weary of her. Moments later, the sound of the door unlocking answers her doubts. Sunghyun greets her with warmth, pulling her into an embrace and planting soft kisses. He draws her closer, guiding her legs between his thighs, the atmosphere thick with unspoken desire. Without hesitation, they move further into the house, seeking privacy as their connection deepens. After their intimate time together, Sunghyun excuses himself to freshen up, leaving Yoonji alone in the quiet room. She rises from the bed, her attention drawn to a painting on the wall, a piece she had created for her mother long ago. Lost in thought as she studies it, she barely notices Sunghyun returning. He pauses behind her and softly asks, "What are you doing with that painting?" For a moment, fear grips Yoonji as she wonders if she has been discovered. But Sunghyun's question turns out to be harmless, driven only by curiosity. He comments on the painting, calling it amateurish, but admits it brings him joy every time he looks at it, which is why he's kept it hanging. Then, his tone shifts, and he tells her there's something he needs to confess. Sunghyun explains that when he said he couldn't be her boyfriend, it wasn't because he didn't like her. It was because his uncle had forbidden him from seeing her. Yoonji responds calmly, revealing she already knew. His uncle had proudly bragged about it in a cafe, even threatening her in the process. Sunghyun apologizes sincerely, clearly distressed by what his uncle has put her through. Yoonji expresses her sadness that their relationship must end because of the situation, but she refuses to give up. She pleads with him to keep meeting in secret, regardless of the risks posed by his uncle. Reluctantly, they agree to maintain a discreet friends with benefits arrangement for now, satisfying their physical desires while keeping their relationship hidden. Their rendezvous is set at his apartment on the 130th floor of the Sigriel Apartments, where Yoonji is willing to play her part to achieve her goals while navigating this fragile, shallow connection. In the present, after they finish their intimate time together, Yoonji notices a delicious aroma wafting through the air. Her curiosity piqued, she heads to the kitchen and is stunned to find Sung-hyun cooking. She hadn't expected him to possess such a skill, and the sight catches her completely off guard. Intrigued, Yoonji asks Sung-hyun about his cooking, and he warmly invites her to sit at the dining table, promising to bring the meal to her once it's ready. She quickly freshens up and then takes her seat. Curious, she asks him about his plans for the day, and he replies that he has to check in at work by 9 o'clock. When the meal is served, she thanks him for his kindness and bids him goodbye. Afterward, she boards a bus to head home, enjoying a quiet ride until an unexpected message from her workplace disrupts her peace. It's from CEO Haru, who asks to meet the following day. Yoonji considers declining politely, especially since she's reconnected with Sung-hyun. However, Haru insists, saying he has a good reason this time and even promises a nice meal. Eventually, Yoonji gives in and agrees. Arriving home, Yoonji is surprised to find Taehun waiting inside. He suggests they head to her room, perhaps to continue their conversation or for something more personal. 8 months ago, Yoonji recalls a memory involving her ex-boyfriend, Taehun. In this memory, she had once dreamed of building a life with him, imagining a house where they could live together and share countless special moments. It was during this time that Taehun first suggested a surprising idea, working as a girlfriend for hire. He didn't want her to be without a job, and the idea seemed like a practical solution. Now, in the present, as they sit together in Yoonji's room, Taehun surprises her by showing her a new car key. He explains he recently closed a big business deal, so he traded in his old car for an upgrade. Mentioning that he'd like to take a shower, Yoonji feels uncomfortable and tells him he should shower at his own place. But before she can finish, he's already stepped into the bathroom. A short while later, Taehun emerges from the bathroom, towel drying his hair, and asks if she has any pants he could borrow. She hands him a pair, and then he stretches out on her bed, making it clear there's no intention of becoming intimate. He assures her he wouldn't get involved with someone already in a relationship. Yet, as he reaches out, holding her hand and pulling her closer, he asks her about her current relationship and, with a smirk, wonders aloud if he was a better lover than her current partner. He tries to touch Yoonji romantically, but she firmly pushes him away, making it clear she has no interest in being involved with him. He chuckles slyly, asking if she's still not ready for a relationship or if she's truly with someone else now. Yoonji replies with confidence, saying her current partner is far better than him. After all, he lives in the prestigious Sigriel Apartments. Taehun raises an eyebrow, commenting that she's still clinging to the past, dwelling on her former successes, and showing no signs of moving forward. With a hint of frustration, he calls his visit a waste of time. Before leaving, he suggests that if he were her, he'd consider trying his hand at writing, then heads to the door. The creaking sound of the door marks his exit, leaving Yoonji alone. Now feeling bored, Yoonji scrolls through social media to pass the time. While browsing, she stumbles upon a news article announcing the closure of a makeup company. Her heart sinks as she realizes the company is her mother's business. Shocked, she's still processing the news when her phone buzzes. It's Sung-hyun, checking in on her and asking her out for a movie date. CEO Haru sits at his desk, trying to come up with new ideas for his webcomic when a message from Yoonji pops up, letting him know she's on her way to meet him. When she arrives, they greet each other warmly, but Haru is momentarily stunned by her beauty. In his mind, she almost seems angelic. Not wanting to waste their time together, he suggests they leave the cafe and head somewhere else. They arrive at a studio where Haru reveals that he's an artist. He shares that he struggles with drawing natural human movements, something he wants to improve. With some uncertainty, Haru asks if she'd be willing to let him sketch her, but reassures her that it's fine if she's uncomfortable and they can do it another time. Yoonji agrees enthusiastically, curious to see how the sketch will turn out. After finishing, Haru nervously shows her the portrait, unsure of how she'll react. To his surprise, Yoonji is thrilled, praising the sketch and thanking him for capturing her so beautifully. Wanting to return the gesture, she offers to sketch him. Haru watches in amazement as she works, and when she shows him the result, he's blown away by her talent. Yoonji modestly explains that it's been a while since she's practiced, but Haru playfully teases that he might use her sketch as his phone wallpaper. As they talk, Yoonji realizes her shift is almost over and starts preparing to leave. However, just as she's about to go, Haru stops her, reminding her they still have one more minute together. In that fleeting moment, he asks if he can hug her. She agrees, and they share a brief, tender embrace. After a while, she gently pulls away, reminding him with a smile that their one-minute moment has ended. Yoonji feels an unusual flutter after hugging Haru, but she quickly brushes it aside, deciding not to dwell on it. With a brief goodbye, she leaves. Later, she meets Sung-hyun for their planned movie date. Sitting in the dim theater, her thoughts wander as she realizes how much she dislikes romantic films. She's only there because she knows it's something he enjoys. As she contemplates, Sung-hyun glances over at her, and their eyes meet. For the first time, she notices a charming, almost boyish quality about him. Leaning closer, she whispers that she's not having fun and suggests they leave. He agrees, and they decide to head to a motel instead. Inside the room, she pours him a drink, trying to lighten the mood. He looks hesitant but accepts it. However, in her haste, she accidentally spills some of the drink on his shirt. Flustered, she rushes to grab tissues to clean it up, but he uses the moment to excuse himself to the bathroom for a shower. To his surprise, Yoonji insists on joining him. The unexpected intimacy leads to a shared moment of passion, deepening their connection. Later, Sung-hyun apologizes for finishing too quickly, but Yoonji reassures him that it's not a problem. She gently explains that she understands it happened because he was truly enjoying himself. Besides, she's grown used to one-sided relationships and doesn't let it bother her. Before settling down to sleep, she asks for a drink. He grabs one for her, and as he hands it over, she notices a faint love bite on his neck. He playfully suggests covering it with makeup, though he admits he doesn't have any. Yoonji offers her own, passing it to him. As Sung-hyun examines the makeup brand, a realization crosses his mind. He recalls his uncle's warnings and wonders if this is connected to why he was advised to stay away from her. Turning back to her, he hesitates before asking if she's ever lived in Seagrill apartments before. Yoonji quickly denies having lived in Seagrill apartments when Sung-hyun asks, then follows up by asking why he's curious. He brushes it off, saying it was just a feeling and nothing more. Yoonji, sensing that further questions might raise suspicion, decides to drop the topic. She offers to lend him some makeup since she has more at home, but Sung-hyun initially declines, worried that revealing he runs a cosmetics company might make her uncomfortable. Later, he changes his mind and accepts her offer. As they drive home, he complains about how exhausted he feels, advising Yoonji to go to bed early when she gets home. She teases him, reminding him that his fatigue is because they were intimate 3 times. Curious, he asks how she usually spends her time, and she tells him about her demanding work schedule and how she tries to rest whenever possible. The conversation shifts to her job as a girlfriend for hire. Sung-hyun asks if she could consider quitting, but she refuses, explaining that she's struggling financially and lives paycheck to paycheck. While she's aware that her job may not reflect well on her, she feels like she has no other option. Still, she expresses gratitude for one thing, meeting him. Her words strike a chord, making Sung-hyun realize she might care about him more than she does about herself. When they arrive at her house, he drops her off and bids her goodnight. As she walks toward her door, she suddenly stops, turns back, and surprises him with a sweet kiss before finally entering her home. Sung-hyun drives away with a warm feeling in his chest, the kiss lingering on his mind. Alone in his car, he reflects on his feelings for Yoonji. He finds it increasingly difficult to suppress his emotions, feeling as though his heart might burst with how strongly he cares for her. The next day at work, Sung-hyun maintains his reputation as a popular and approachable leader. Known for his fair and flexible management style, he's managed to silence earlier criticisms about his privileged upbringing by excelling as the vice president. While working in his office, a colleague informs him of an upcoming meeting with the chairman, meaning his uncle will soon visit. Left alone, he pulls out the makeup Yoonji lent him. Staring at it, he wonders if he made a mistake trying to connect Yoonji to the makeup brand based on a single product. He hopes his suspicions about the situation are unfounded. Sung-hyun's uncle arrives at the office, only to find out that he's in a meeting. After waiting, Sung-hyun eventually steps out and invites his uncle in, immediately sensing tension. The uncle launches into a tirade, voicing his anger at the decision Sung-hyun's grandfather made by appointing him, someone he labels a murderer, as vice president. He can't fathom why the grandfather would trust him with such a position and is determined to prevent him from rising to the presidency. Sung-hyun listens calmly and, in response, tells his uncle that he's content with his current role and has no interest in becoming president. He points out that their conversation has nothing to do with work, and he excuses himself. Frustrated and angered, his uncle curses as Sung-hyun leaves the room. On his way out of the office, the uncle's thoughts darken. We learn that he's prepared to go to any lengths to secure what he believes is his rightful place, even if it means betraying his family. Disturbingly, it's revealed that he was responsible for Sung-hyun's father's death and had even managed to frame him for the crime in some way. In another scene, Yoonji anxiously prepares for her doctor's appointment. It's her first time seeing him since their awkward date, and she's unsure how he'll react. Determined to stay mature, she steels herself for the meeting. When she enters his office, she immediately apologizes for leaving abruptly last time. To her surprise, he isn't upset. He reassures her, saying he assumed she must have had a good reason for leaving and that, in retrospect, he felt uncomfortable as well since, as her psychiatrist, it wasn't appropriate to take her out. Reflecting on it later, he realized it was a lapse in judgment on his part. Yoonji is surprised by his understanding response but listens as he continues. He confesses that he regrets trying to buy emotional closeness and admits he was wrong to approach her in that way. She feels a sting, thinking it's criticism of her job, but he softens his tone and encourages her, saying she has immense potential and is young enough to pursue any career or future she wants. Curious, she asks why he sought a girlfriend for hire at all. Hesitantly, he reveals a deeply personal reason. His father is gravely ill and wishes to see him married before he passes. In an attempt to fulfill his father's wish, he hired a girlfriend for hire to take staged wedding photos. Yoonji feels a pang of guilt for leaving him so abruptly that day. Wanting to make amends, she offers to help him by taking the photos together, not as part of her job, but because she genuinely likes him as a person and wants to support him. Dr. Yu thanks Yoonji for her generous offer and asks for some time to consider it. She agrees, smiling, and he schedules her next appointment. As she walks away, she feels a warm glow of hope. The thought of helping Dr. Yu makes her feel like a better person, and she can't help but daydream about the possibility of him starting to like her. However, her thoughts are interrupted when someone taps her on the shoulder. She turns to see a man asking if she's Hoyoung's girlfriend. At first, Yoonji is confused, but then she remembers dealing with a rude customer named Hoyoung a while back. The man insists that Hoyoung frequently praises her, claiming she's too good for him, and accuses her of lying when she denies knowing Hoyoung. As the man's tone becomes more accusatory and intrusive, Yoonji starts to feel cornered. Just then, Haru appears. He steps in confidently, telling the man to back off. Haru's firm stance causes the man to retreat, and once he's gone, Haru jokingly advises Yoonji to kick anyone who tries to bother her like that again. Relieved and grateful, she thanks him for stepping in. As they walk together, she notices a nearby building and asks about the academy Haru mentioned earlier. He hesitates for a moment, his cheeks slightly flushed, before admitting that he attends an academy for webtoon art and production. Yoonji teases him lightly, and they decide to grab coffee at a nearby cafe. Over coffee, the conversation turns to education. Haru reveals that he never planned on working at a traditional company. To emphasize his point, he proudly shows a visible tattoo, which he got as a subtle protest against his parents' wishes. Curious, Yoonji asks about his dreams. He opens up, explaining that he has always wanted to be a webtoon artist. He shares how his parents wanted him to become a civil servant or a salaryman, but he had other plans. He skipped college to dedicate 2 years to preparing for a career in webtoons, but his progress was slow, and the lack of success led to tension at home. Yoonji listens intently and then asks, half-jokingly, if he contacted her for inspiration for his webtoons. He quickly apologizes, insisting he didn't mean to offend her. Laughing, Yoonji reassures him that the only thing that offended her was the man who harassed her earlier. As their conversation continues, Haru shows Yoonji some of his sketches. She's impressed by his talent and finds his work charming but feels the storytelling could use some polish. She offers to help him draft stories, and Haru, taken aback by her eagerness, agrees with gratitude.